Just wanna be with you. Just wanna be with you.
Giving to your local church should be easy, and with Tithely, it is. Just download the app and securely register your credit or debit card. You're done. Now you can give during church services or anywhere else. Use Tithely to give a one-time gift or set up recurring donations. It's that simple. It's fast, secure, and easy to use. Tithely, the simplest way to give to your local church.
Hi, I'm Jackie, and I want to welcome you to Newsoul Ribera Church Online. If this is your first time or the first time in a long time, we're so glad that you joined us today. My heart really goes out to the people and families in Ukraine. Although it doesn't seem like there's hope or there's peace, there's always hope and peace in God. And that's what I think we all need to hold on to right now. We're excited that the mask mandate has been lifted. So if you've been waiting to join in person because of COVID, maybe it's time you come back. We hope this song encourages you. I'll talk to you again in a few minutes.
It's time for the sleeper to wake. It's time for the old wind to change. I hear the Spirit say, it's time. It's time for the dead man to rise. It's time for the great light to shine. I hear the Spirit say, it's time. Fling wide to heaven. people's praise. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in. Oh, let him in. Let him in. Come on, let's sing it out. It's time for the sleeper to wake. It's time for the old wind to change. I hear the Spirit say, it's time for the dead man to rise. It's time for the great light to shine. Oh, I hear the Spirit say, it's time. Oh, it's time. Flee wide you, heavenly gates. Oh, let the King of glory in. Oh, let the King of glory in. Come right in on your people's praise. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in. Fling wide you, heavenly gates. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in. Come right in on your people's praise. Let the King of glory in. Oh, let the King of glory in. Oh, let him in. Oh, let him in. Oh, let him in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Let the light in. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Let the light in. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Let the light in. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Let the light in. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Let the light in. Let the light in. Fling wide you, heavenly gates. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in. Come right in on your people's praise. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in. Fling wide you, heavenly gates. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in. Come right in on your people's praise. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in. Oh, let him in. Oh, let him in. Oh, let him in. And open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Let the light in. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Let the light in. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Let the light in. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the light in. Open up the windows. Let the King of Glory in. Let the King of Glory in. Come arriving on your people's praises. Let the King of Glory in. Let the King of Glory in.
Giving is a part of our worship too. What we do with our money tells us what we value or what or who we trust with our lives. When you give 1% of your income to God each week, you're putting His kingdom first in your life. Your generosity is what allows us to come into your home or your car or your phone or wherever you are. Not just for you, but for so many others, like in Pecos, Las Vegas, my hometown, Albuquerque, Los Lunas, Villanueva, Gonzales Ranch, Lovato, even South Carolina and Oklahoma. When you give to Newsoul Ribera, you are investing in God's work in the world and especially in the Valley. You can text to give by texting the word blessed to 94000, or you can give online by clicking in the link below or going to newsoulribera.com. Or you can give by mail. Our address is on the screen in the comment section below. So are you ready to study what Jesus actually taught? If you haven't yet, text someone the link and invite them to join us. If you're doing something in another room or looking at your Facebook or Instagram feed, come back to this page. Okay, let's do this. I'll talk to you in about 35 minutes.
If you were a praying mantis, it would be socially acceptable for you to use your spouse's food. It would be okay to literally eat them. If you were a honey badger, you have no regard for any other animal. You just take what you want, destroy what you want, eat what you want, and you don't care. And that's just how it is. If you were a panda and you had 2 cubs, it would be normal for you to abandon one to take care of the other. So if there is no creator and the universe just happened by accident, if humans are basically evolved animals and not made in the image of God, then why is it that in Ukraine, when humans do these kinds of things, when humans take what they want from other humans, when they invade and destroy and even kill other humans, it's considered wrong, unfair, or unjust? Wrong according to who? If it's just how the world works, when animals do it, and humans are just more evolved animals, why don't we say that's just how the world works when humans do the same thing to other humans? Why is it news? Why do humans cry and get angry when they see this kind of behavior? Why is it unjust? Who says it's unjust? I'll talk more about this in just a few minutes. Today we are continuing our series, Words from the Hill, Jesus Unfiltered. If you have deconstructed, walked away, even ran away from faith, this is the perfect week for you to join us. If you've never been to church or just checking this out, or maybe you're a Christian but you don't really know where your faith is at the moment, this series was created just for you. In Words from the Hill, Jesus Unfiltered, we are taking a deep look at the words Jesus actually said, which, I have to warn you, might be a lot different than what you heard he said. So far, we've learned that the first thing Jesus taught was not about celibacy or reading scripture. It wasn't about prayer or even helping people. Jesus didn't begin his TED Talk or sermon by mentioning God at all. He didn't mention the end of the world or hell or the devil, worship, or even sin. In fact, Jesus offended and shocked his first century audience with his words. They were expecting an agent of God to bring justice and peace to their world by political and military power. They'd been praying and hoping that God would send someone to stop the chaos and crisis in their world. They had a preconceived idea of how Jesus should talk and what he should say. They showed up to listen to Jesus because they wanted him to tell them how God was going to help them get free from the powerful bully nation who had invaded them and was occupying them. But instead, Jesus did something revolutionary. The very first thing Jesus taught about in his message was how they could live a full and satisfying life in the middle of chaos. Jesus taught that the first secret to living a fulfilled life in an unpredictable world full of invasions and pandemics is happy are the humble. Jesus put humility first. Jesus told his audience that he was launching a brand new nation on earth. But his audience was really hoping that he was going to make the old one great again. Jesus said that this new nation was exclusively for people who live a life of humility. That they were the kind of people who embrace the fact that they don't know everything. They aren't in control of global politicians, the economy, or even their ability to breathe or even blink their eyes. Jesus' new nation was for people who weren't focused on saving their own lives and the lives of the people who were so important to them. They weren't proud, self-righteous, self-centered, or self-absorbed. Jesus taught that the first step towards living your best life is when you come to the end of yourself and when you live like everything you have was given to you by someone else. This is very important. Jesus wasn't issuing a command or a statement. He was just talking about the reality of an unpredictable world full of wars, pandemics, and the death of loved ones. Happy are the humble. The second point Jesus made in these words from the hill is happy are those who have a growth mindset. He taught that people who have the best kind of life in any situation are the people who are intentional about being honest with themselves about who they are and where they are in life. Jesus taught that the comfort of transformation and growth only comes through the sorrow and discomfort that comes from being brutally honest with yourself about areas of your life that need to change. He taught that when you get sick and tired of something in your life not being what it should be, that's when you will do something about it. Jesus taught that people who live their lives to escape or numb sorrow and pain never experience the best kind of life. Happy are those with a growth mindset. Now, last time we talked about the third point Jesus taught in his sermon. He didn't talk about God. Instead, he taught that happy are those who can take the heat. That people who can keep their composure when life doesn't go their way experience a full and happy life. People who don't lose their temper under the stress of change, the pressure of not being in control, and the weight of responsibility. They aren't pushy, nor do they force their way on others. Jesus taught that people who live the best kind of life don't use power to fight power. They don't meet force with force. They don't allow the anger and violence they experience to turn them into angry and violent people. These people can endure injustice and patience, injustice with patience instead of force. Happy are those who can take the heat. Will Jesus talk about God today in his words from the hill? Well, let's find out. The next thing Jesus teaches is blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. So Jesus didn't say blessed are those who hunger and thirst for God. Now this is really important. If you are hungry for God, that's really subjective, right? Everyone has their idea of God. To some people, hungry for God means spending lots of time singing worship songs, praying, meditating, going to church, or reading scripture. But that's not what Jesus said. Jesus said hunger and thirst for righteousness. In other words, people who are fulfilled and experience the best kind of life are people who crave righteousness. Now, for many of you, the word righteous may make you think of Juice WRLD. If you have no idea who that is, it's probably because when you think of righteous, you think of the Righteous Brothers. Now, righteousness sounds like you have to believe in God or be religious to know what it means or even care, right? So I want to introduce you to Lamarcus. Lamarcus is a mechanical engineer with an education from a great school. He does not believe in God or organized religions. He thinks religion does more harm than good. Here's what Lamarcus thinks about what it means to be righteous as an atheist. He says, just because I am an atheist doesn't mean I don't believe in something greater than myself. Humankind's greatest accomplishment has been civilization. No matter what history has thrown at us, humans have banded together for the greater survival collectively of us as a species. A righteous life is one that strives to make civilization a reality, either by helping others, pursuing knowledge, keeping each other safe, or just by being generally kind and courteous people. Religion at its core seeks to fulfill this reality, and for many provides the motivation for them to see this reality come to life. But as an atheist, I've decided upon my own motivations. My goal, the prosperity and continuity of civilization, remains the same. I may not believe in God, but that doesn't mean I can't see that there are forces greater than me at work. I just attribute those forces to individuals doing their part. I choose not to worry about death. It will come for me as it has for a billion people before mine. I worry about my life, that I may always take opportunities to spread kindness, generosity, and share my humanity with others, because making civilization worthwhile is the only righteous life we can lead. So, well said, Lamarcus. What do you think? Do you think there was anyone who felt like Lamarcus in the crowd that Jesus was teaching that day? Was Jesus talking about the same kind of righteousness that Lamarcus referred to? Lamarcus says that a righteous life is one that strives to make civilization a reality. Now, that sounds really beautiful, sincerely. But what kind of civilization? Lamarcus, whose kind of civilization? Let me explain what I mean. In China, government authorities have committed genocide against 1 million Uyghurs who are predominantly Muslim. They have used imprisonment, torture, enforced sterilization, and forced labor against Uyghurs and members of other religious and ethnic minority groups. Uyghurs is the name of an ethnic group, a religious group in China. There's evidence that this forced labor has leaked into the global supply chain for products we all use, from companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon. The Chinese government acts this way because it sees these groups as harmful to their version of civilization, and they are working to protect their civilization. They wanted to make their version of civilization a reality. Now, in Saudi Arabia, for example, Sharia law is the law of the land, where the Quran and the religion of Islam is the actual law that the police enforce. Everyone has to obey or be punished. Under Sharia law, not being Muslim is against the law. There is no freedom of religion. If you are a woman, you are denied the same rights as men, and husbands are given more power than wives in marriage, according to the law. There is no due process of law, no right to a fair trial. You can be tortured or even put to death without either. For people in these nations, a righteous life is fighting to make sure that this kind of civilization is a reality. Now, these are just two examples. It seems like people define for themselves what kind of civilization they want. Some of this comes from who raised us and the types of people we were around growing up. Maybe that all seems fine as long as they do their civilization over there away from you, or away from you, Lamarcus. But what happens when their idea of right invades your idea of wrong? Lamarcus, what then? It happens with big things like war and water, and little things like masks and vaccines and mandates. Doesn't that take us back to where we started out today, with who gets to define what is right and who gets to define what is wrong, fair or unfair, just or unjust? Have you noticed that humans create their own versions of righteousness? We tend to redefine right and wrong, justice and injustice, fair and unfair, to our own advantage at the expense of others. We want our version of civilization to be in front, right? So we tend to put self-preservation first, and the weaker someone is, the easier it is to take advantage of them. Now, maybe you say you care about the trees and planet Earth, but the only tree and plant that you're saving is weed. You tell people that they should give to charity, but you aren't generous and don't give anything. You tell your kids or grandkids to do their homework and do well in school, but you haven't cracked a book since high school. You tell your child to stop partying and focus on their future, but you have a drinking addiction that you waste lots of money on. You complain about how broke you are, but you won't work. So what kind of righteousness is Jesus talking about to his first century audience? It's the Hebrew word tzedakah. That's tzedakah in Hebrew. And it means to have right relationships between people. For Jesus' audience that day, they had been taught that all humans were created in the image of God, regardless of their race, how much money they had, their beliefs, where they came from, or even their behavior. This is really important. So in their world, righteousness or right relationships between people would be treating every person, man, woman, child, young and old, with the dignity and respect that they deserved because they were created in the image of God. It meant that their code of conduct was to not do anything that would hurt someone else or themselves, which can seem idealistic and not very practical, but I bet that you do this all the time in your own life. You might say things like, I need to make it right, or you should make it right, or are we good? You might hear people say, man, why you gotta do me like that? Or she did me wrong. At work, righteousness might look like, would your boss, customer, or client be good with the quality of your work, even when they aren't around to see you doing it? Are you doing them right, or are you doing them wrong? To test the righteousness of your relationships, maybe the person you're dating or married to, just ask them, are we good? Am I treating you right? What do you think they would say? Are you afraid to ask them that question? If you are, pay attention to that tension. How about in the areas of your life that are secret, where they don't know what you do and with who you do it, or how you spend money? If they found out, would they be good with it? Would it be all right? Do you see how righteousness works? How about with your parents or your kids? Are you treating them right? Or are you just following your maternal or youthful instinct? Is your behavior actually doing good to them? Or is it harming them? Are you honoring or are you using your parents? Really? Are you helping or are you controlling your kids or grandkids? Really? How about your relationship with the government or the IRS, your creditors, those people you borrow money from and promise to pay them back? Can you see how there is no area of your life that righteousness doesn't touch? Your loved ones, your neighbors, your exes, even your enemies, every person you come into contact with every day, do you treat them right? Would they say the same thing? Would they? Are you sure? You know, I have blind spots in my life. These are places where I'm sure I'm right, but the people around me can see that I'm wrong. These are areas of my life that I think I'm good in, but everyone else can see I'm not good in. For years, one of my favorite things to do was to play basketball 3 times a week. It was very, very competitive. I loved it. I'm competitive, but I'm not as competitive as some of the people I played with. We didn't have officials or referees. We had an honor system, which meant that we expected every player to call their own fouls and keep check to make sure they played by the rules, which worked well most of the time. But when the game was on the line, that's when the honor system would really get tested. We would play first team to 15 points. If you lost, you'd have to sit out the next game or two because another 5 players would come in to play. Your body might get cold and wouldn't have the same workout. If you won, you ended up with a great workout. You stayed on, you got to play, you got in rhythm, which helped you win more. And ultimately, playing is what we all love, the ability to play the game. So when the score would get close to 15, more fouls would get called and the level of competition would increase. Everyone would play harder and more focused because it mattered more. There would usually be one player who was the most competitive player there who could not stand to lose, who took it personally. There was one player who was so competitive that even if the ball and his foot was out of bounds, clear for everyone to see, he would loudly argue with you that it was not out. He was a really good guy, but he hated to lose so much that when the game was on the line, his ability to see reality was lost. He had a massive blind spot. He really, truly believed that he was right, even when everyone around him could see he was wrong. He would even get to the point where he believed everyone there was against him, like a conspiracy was happening. Maybe you have blind spots too. So Jesus did something to help everyone with their blind spots when it comes to righteousness. Now, the tradition and custom of Jesus's audience was to do something that we've all heard of before. The people in Jesus's time lived by the golden rule. That was their version of righteousness, to treat others like we want to be treated. Now, this sounds good as a guide for righteousness, right? If you're an agnostic or an atheist and are really courageous, this is a pretty good assessment for you. For example, you can ask yourself, if I were the manager, would I be good or okay with the level of work and integrity that I bring to the job every day compared to what I could be doing for my company or organization? Or if I were my girlfriend, would I be okay or good with how I look at and treat other women when she's not around? I invite you to use it in your life and see if it doesn't make your life better and make you better at life. Now, when it comes to the golden rule, I know personally someone who won't be kind to strangers or show generosity to others. And when he's reminded of the golden rule, he'll say, I wouldn't want anyone to get up and welcome me. I just want to be left alone. Do you know anyone like that? Do you? That's called a blind spot. So Jesus did something shocking and revolutionary. Now, if you're not a Jesus follower, this next part isn't for you. So you don't have to do this, but if you are a Jesus follower, Jesus takes the idea of righteousness to a brand new level for you. Now, this is really important. This is a command. If you say you are a follower of Christ, this is your rule for how to live your life. that you follow his example of how he has treated you and as your guide and how you treat every person that you come in contact with every day. Jesus clarifies this powerful and simple righteousness guide for human behavior across cultures and nations in every era of history and through every stage of life. Jesus said, a new command I give you. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. Now, who does this Jesus think he is, giving commands like this? Jesus is replacing all 615 laws that his audience was following as their guide for righteousness with one new command. We call this the platinum rule, to love others like Jesus has loved you. Jesus is saying, listen, I am your new standard for righteousness. I am your new guide for how to treat each other. Jesus is saying here, he's saying, where were you, Matthew, when I invited you to follow me? Who were you? Where was your life headed? What were you when I saw value in you? How did I treat you? That is your new standard for how to be righteous in your relationships with one another. Love each other like I loved you. See, that means no more blind spots. Just look at Jesus. In the end, Jesus would lay down his life for his followers. Now, what kind of king or president or leader does that? After Jesus came back from the dead, he asked his followers to lay down their lives, but not for God, for one another. You see, there are lots of religions and movements where followers die for their gods or their cause. The early followers of Jesus, however, captivated the attention of their culture and their world because they laid down their lives for one another. They loved each other that much. The world had never witnessed a group of people who would love one another like that. If you are a Jesus follower right now, how has Jesus treated you? How does he deal with you? That is your guide for righteousness towards others. So when Jesus said, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled," Jesus isn't saying that you should want to treat people well. This is really important because that's our problem, right? If the point of Jesus' message is that we should want to treat people better, then he hasn't helped us very much here at all. In fact, if that's what Jesus is saying, he's just putting more pressure and burdens on us to make us feel bad about ourselves. Because we all know that we should want to treat people better, but we just don't. We just don't want to love people all the time. I mean, let's be honest. If we're waiting until any of us want to sacrifice what we want for someone else or to do good to people who do us wrong, we might as well say, yeah, Jesus, good luck with that. Did you know that there is a difference between appetite versus hunger? You see, appetite is your desire to eat, and desire comes and goes like a commercial or your emotions. Appetite is about wanting to, right? It's distinct from hunger, which is your body's biological response to a lack of something. It's when your body needs fuel. Some of you know this, that when you're thirsty, by the time your body realizes, hey, I'm thirsty, you're already dehydrated. Hunger and thirst isn't about wanting to, it's about needing to. Jesus is saying that those who have the good life are those who realize that they are always needing to because they are always deficient in treating people around them like they should be treated. In other words, they feel the gap between how they naturally deal with people compared to how they would deal with them if they really believed they were made in the image of God. These kinds of people know that they have an inbuilt weakness, that if they aren't intentional, they naturally tend to devalue people when they get to know people really well. They are self-aware enough to know that it is a challenge to always see all people made in the image of God instead of putting them into a category or dehumanizing them. Jesus is saying, happy are those who owe everyone a debt of love. The first followers of Jesus took this debt, this deficit, right? A debt is owing something. It's what you lack. It's a negative number in the column. They took it seriously. The Apostle Paul describes this deficiency another way when he wrote this letter to Jesus followers in Rome. He says, let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt of love to one another. Paul is telling the first Jesus followers, when it comes to your bills, get back to even. Pay them off, get your loans and your credit cards down to zero on the books. But remember that you will never get back to zero when it comes to how you treat other people. Live like you are at a deficit, like you owe them love. Do you remember when you first met that person that was important to you and you went out of your way to make them comfortable? Why don't you treat everyone that way all the time? Why did you stop? Have you noticed that the more intimately you get to know someone, the less you tend to like them? Can we be honest? When you were first dating, or when you first started your job, or when you met someone for the first time, everything was new, filled with hope and expectation. It was exciting. You thought that person or those people were amazing. You told everyone about them. They were exciting because you didn't know them that well yet. As you got to know them, you realized that they weren't perfect, that they make mistakes, that they are different than you. At first, those differences were attractive and interesting, but over time, their differences became annoying and irritating because they were different than you. It is natural for you to lose respect for people over time, to devalue them, to take them for granted. When we began, we talked about why humans are able to do things like this to other humans in the Ukraine. It begins when people begin to dehumanize other people. Before he sent Russian troops in to attack the Ukraine, Vladimir Putin called Ukrainians drug addicts and Nazis. Do you see how this works? To Putin, Ukrainians weren't humans made in the image of God. He dehumanized them. They were a thing. He put them in a category. Nazis, drug addicts. Is there anyone that you dehumanize? Maybe you use categories like those Mexicans, or those white people, or they're from the ranch, or they're from the city, or those liberals, or those conservatives, or maybe you're a young person who talks about old people, or maybe you're a husband who talks about the old ball and chain and the old lady. I've even heard some husbands call their wives fea. It's Spanish for, well, I'll let you look it up. Maybe you're a woman who says, well, He's a man, so what do you expect? You say man like you say roach or mouse. If you grew up in church, you might have gotten comfortable with calling people sinners or worldly or even worse. To treat people with the honor and dignity of an image bearer of God requires intentionality. It is not natural, not for you, not for me. Giving everyone the respect of a person that God created on purpose, with purpose, reflecting his glory, regardless of their beliefs or lifestyle or behavior, is not instinctive. You have to choose to do that. You have to choose righteousness. So, do you treat everyone like they are a son or daughter of God? Really? Are you dehumanizing anyone so you could use them and abuse them for your own benefit? That sounds a bit drastic, right? Steve, I don't abuse or dehumanize anyone. Maybe your customers or your clients, your direct reports, even your boss. How about in your personal life? You might already know this, but if you use pornography for sexual pleasure, you are dehumanizing the people in those images for your sexual benefit. Come on, you know this. Are you thinking that they are real people or just a means to an end? How about someone you're dating? Are you using them to help you over a lonely spot in your life? Do they know that you know that your relationship has an expiration date? That you're going to dump them at some point? Are you treating sex like a transaction instead of like a relationship? You know that sex is designed to be relational, intimate, and personal. One of the most personal acts you can engage in. Sex was never created to be transactional. That's why it hurts so much when the person you're having sex with ends the relationship. So quiz time. When Jesus talks about righteousness, he means A, wearing a cross necklace, B, talking about God all the time, C, reading scripture and praying, or D, treating people as if they were made in the image of God. If you chose D, you're brilliant. Next question. When Jesus talks about hunger and thirst, he means your craving for ice cream, the deficit between where you should be and where you are, how your stomach feels about tacos, or how good ice cold water tastes. If you said the deficit between where you should be from the way you view people naturally and where you are when you see them as made in the image of God, that deficit, then you're brilliant. You got it right. In his most famous message, Jesus taught that happy are the humble, as we close today. Sum this up. Above all, if you're trying to understand what following Jesus is all about, it begins with being humble. Second, happy are those who have a growth mindset. Jesus taught that the way to a good life belongs to people who are intentional about going through the discomfort of growth. Third, happy are those who can take the heat. The people who aren't pushy, nor do they force their way on others, have the best life. And today, we learned that Jesus taught that happy are those who owe everyone a debt of love. After hearing all of this, it almost sounds like Jesus didn't come to start a religion at all, doesn't it? It's almost like Jesus is creating a brand new culture, like he's teaching humans a new way to live their lives. We have more to study next time, but imagine if all of us, just for this week, put these 4 things into practice in our lives. What do you think would happen? Imagine that. Well, that's it for today. Join us next time for Words from the Hill, Jesus Unfiltered. Don't miss it.
Let me pray for you. Father, we thank you for this day. We give you this day. Father, you're the Prince of Peace. I just call upon your peace right now, Father, and ask that you would just touch everyone watching this video, Father, that you would just pour your peace upon us, Father. And you are hope, and we just believe, Father, and we just hold on to that hope, that you are our hope, Father. Father, I pray that you would just bring your love and your joy and your peace upon everyone watching, Father. And Father, you know what we need to work on in our hearts. Father, reveal that to us and help us to be better, Father, so it can just reflect around us, Father. That we thank you for your goodness and your kindness to us, Father, and your faithfulness. You're always faithful. You never leave us nor forsake us, and you never will. We thank you for that, Father. We bless your name in Jesus' holy and mighty name. Amen. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a blessed week, and I'll see you all next week. Take care.
Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause he's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. I've still got joy in chaos. I've got peace that makes no sense. So I won't be going under. I'm not held by my own strength, 'cause I built my life on Jesus, and he's never let me down. He's faithful in every season. So why would he fail now? He won't. No, he won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. No, no, no. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause he's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. No, no, he won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Rain came, wind blew, my house was built on you. I'm safe with you. I'm gonna make it through. Rain came, wind blew, my house was built
safe with you. I'm gonna make it through. Yeah, I'm gonna make it through. 'Cause I'm standing